What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. We are live in the Boise State Esports Arena here at Boise State University. We're in Idaho, Hawk.
We're in Idaho.
We made it. We are here for the CLOL Grand Finals, which will be happening tomorrow, starting at 3 Eastern at twitch.tv/UniEsportsNA. A big shout out to the entire crew here at Boise State University. Just getting to watch their esports production staff and everyone kind of do their stuff over the last couple of hours as we've flown in here today has been absolutely incredible.
I am profoundly jealous of this amazing setup that they have here. I mean, this is like LCS tier. I mean, seriously, amazing production value. We want to thank Boise State massively for even letting us use the space to record a Salty Runback episode. Again, I mean, based on what we're seeing right now, CLOL on Saturday is going to be amazing.
Yeah, look at us. We got. I don't know if we can pan to the wide shot here. Maybe we're being a little bit too fancy here. But look, we got the full
this is
Salty Runback logo here. We got the big trophy. I see some scratches from our Adaption drop it from last year.
Shout out Adaption.
I will never forget that. But we have a really exciting episode here live for you today. Our part 2 is going to feature the directors of both Maryville University and St. Louis University, Chew and Clerkie. They're going to talk to us about just how their programs ended up getting founded and what they think about this ultimate matchup. But let's just jump right into it, Hawk. Let's start us off with our headlines. We always have that, even though we are in this maybe different format.
We got things to talk about. We got things to talk about.
Well,
so
we're going to keep it light to start things off, though. Our first headline, we are here in Boise, Idaho. This is my first time in Idaho. I believe this is your first time in Idaho.
So I've actually been to Idaho before, but I've never been to Boise. I've been to Idaho Falls, which is near Craters of the Moon National Park. So I was there, I want to say the summer of 2018 with my mom and my sister. Just like we did Craters of the Moon, and then we did Yellowstone and Grand Tetons, which is over in like Montana, Wyoming. So I've been to, long story short, been to Idaho. I've never been to Boise.
I've never been, this is my first time kind of in this like, I don't know what you call it. Is it like the Western United States, Pacific Northwest?
Big Sky Country.
Big Sky, that sounds right. But it's been great. I mean,
it's a nice town.
I woke up or I didn't wake up. I got in an Uber from my home at about 4 in the morning yesterday, or today actually. And it's been a long
I need everyone to know out there, we had a conversation of like editing Salty Runback episodes and stuff. And then Grapes about 10 minutes later is like, okay, I got to go catch an Uber. And I'm like, brother, like what? So yeah, I don't think Grapes slept at all, but so he's a trooper.
I slept a lot on the plane. I slept before I got here to the studio. It's awesome. We got to talk to the players and things like that. It's been a lot of fun. And the city's just been great as well. I mean, just getting to walk around a little bit. We got lunch with some of the talent and some of our production staff a little bit earlier today. And just getting to walk around downtown Boise, it's been super cool. I really want to go see like the blue football field.
We got to get on the blue field. So bucket list item for me.
That's probably a tomorrow plan. But I mean, it's you know, we're not in LA, we're not in the LCS studios obviously, but I think BSU is going to put on a really incredible production. Just given what we've been seeing here so far.
And I will say, you know, like doing something that's student driven as well. Like I mean, pretty much everyone behind the scenes is a student of BSU or you know, faculty. I mean, it really is cool how personal this show feels like it's going to be. So even though it is a little bit different and it's not exactly what we envisioned at the beginning of the year, like being here, it's going to be awesome, and I'm very excited.
We got to take a look at the big stage where all the players are going to be competing, and they have these giant PCs that are like.
Well, I overslept. I haven't taken a look at it yet, but you got
to take a look.
I'm gonna immediately after this.
Yeah.
But I may have showed up to this to the studio about.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah. Wow.
Look at those PCs. They're working hard.
Those are beasts. That's making my PC at home jealous. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got all the crew here. Shout out to everyone. That's Maryville, I believe, in there. I see Shipley. So just the start of all of what we're going to be able to be seeing here. And you're going to want to.
It's going to be a great weekend.
Yeah, but let's start talking about CLOL.
Let's get it
a little bit more. Starting with the games that we didn't get to cover on our podcast last time because we were previewing them. The top 4 matches that happened a couple of weeks ago. We had Northwood playing against SLU. They lost 3-0. We had SLU playing against UST, and it was a rematch of the upper quarterfinals. And SLU ended up changing the narrative and winning 3-1. It's a big losers bracket run for SLU. They took down 4 teams in that lower bracket, and they look like a very different team than what they look like coming in to this top 8. But, Hawk, my question to you is, does that run make you think any differently about how this matchup is going to go against Maryville?
And it's a really interesting question because my answer is yes, but also not really. And I'm gonna dive in. Don't worry, I'll make sure, SLU, we're gonna get our roses because I'll start with the not really, I guess, because it's the shorter part where I just think Maryville is so good, right? Like they are maybe the strongest collegiate program that we've ever seen, obviously, but this team in particular is insane, and it feels like this team might be the one that's just like fated to win the championship, right? But SLU has definitely changed their narrative over the last few weeks, and I definitely don't want to take that away from this team. I mean, their lower bracket run was unprecedented. They beat basically each of the other teams that were in like the big six that we laid out at the beginning of the year, Grapes. They didn't beat Fisher, but Northwood beat Fisher, and then they beat Northwood, right? So it was still basically every team that was not Maryville that we thought might stand in their way. SLU directly knocked them out of the tournament, which is an insane lower bracket run. And I think this team has really clearly rallied around each other and their gameplay and leveled up so much from when they got 3-0'd about a month and a half ago in North Conference Finals. So I think they're going to make it really entertaining. I don't think SLU gets swept again. I wouldn't be surprised if SLU could force a Game 5 this time around. I don't know if I have them winning, though, just because I hold Maryville in that high of regard.
I think the biggest difference that we've seen from SLU this lower bracket run versus like their performances in the earlier rounds of the tournament is just their team play looks a lot better. It's less face rolling, Surdy up 100 CS over whatever UCSD top laner gets thrown at him. Instead, it's playing together as 5. I think Darkwings had a great
Darkwings
weekend.
has been unreal. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think everyone's kind of been able to play together, except for when they lane swap. They still somehow
they had the one Game 2 against UST.
Okay, that was they ended
but
up
like could we argue that UST fumbled? Could we argue?
I mean, they ended up like kind of even at the end of it as well, which isn't great.
They were up like a K.
If you're Maryville, if you're watching the tape, I mean, the lane swap. If you force SLU to lane swap a little bit, that's where they start to fall apart. But
yeah.
I mean, hopefully they fix that. I mean, they've had a couple of weeks.
They've had a few weeks. They've been scrimming.
Yeah, and I think the team play is the biggest thing that I'm looking for in terms of them, looking better than they have been in the past. But again, the problem is Maryville's team play. We've credited them time and time again for just being one of the best team player, like one of the best coordinated teams in the entire NACL.
They were a runner-up in NACL. It really just, to me, again, it's just this team feels so hard to beat. I think SLU will take a game. Like Surdy's in form. Dude, like, if he can make Niles look like a Grandmaster top laner, the series is going to be difficult for Maryville, you know what I mean? Like, 19-0. What?
Don't let Niles hear you that you said
I didn't say he will. I said if, okay? I said if, Niles. But, no, I'm sure I'll hear about it. But, and like, Darkwings has been on form. I mean, the whole team's been on form. So I think SLU is, at the very least, going to put up a good fight. And I think we'll have an entertaining series.
Yeah, we can move on to our next headline, which talks a little bit more about the players that will be on the Rift for this Grand Finals. I want you to pick one player from each team that you think is going to have the biggest impact of the result as a whole. It could be positive or negative. Who's going to be the most important player for both of these teams?
Yeah, it's a super interesting question because I think you can go at it from a couple different lenses, but for me, I'll start with my. Do we maybe each want to talk about like SLU, and then we can each talk about Maryville?
Yeah,
maybe.
let's do SLU first.
Okay, so let's start with SLU because I think this is the most interesting one to me because I think I was just saying Darkwings has been on form, and I think it has to be Darkwings again because I think what we've seen so far in this CLOL Championship is that no one has really been able to contend with Spyrax, like really. Right? Some people have been able to hold their own a little bit, but I mean, a big part of the reverse sweep was I thought that Spyrax played a lot better in that series than Robbie Bob. And Robbie Bob is one of the greatest CLOL players we've ever had, right? And if Spyrax can do that, he has just been on another level. And when Spyrax is playing well, UG's able to play well, right? And we know how good UG can be. I think if Darkwings can play to Spyrax's level and actually maybe even beat him in a game, or at the very least, like not just hold his own, but really create his own window to carry in the games, I think that's a huge path to success for SLU. Because then all of a sudden, Winnie is enabled to play the Winnie game. And when Winnie's playing the Winnie game, Winnie's playing a great game, right? And I feel like if you can hold down that mid lane really well, that's going to set up SLU in a great place to actually take some games in the series.
Yeah, I mean, getting to watch Darkwings like really flex his champion pool as well.
Yeah.
In this past week, and he played the Vayne mid.
Dude,
which I know
that was so hype.
I mean, this is something that, like, you know, he's been a control mage player for a couple of years now, but you think back to, like, 2021.
When we were coming in.
Or AoE, like, this guy was on a ton of different picks. He was on Aurelia.
He was on hype stuff.
And things like that. And so getting to see that little bit of Darkwings again was super fun. I mean, he was, like, the Red Bull 1v1 champion back in a couple of years ago as well. So, like,
that's a throwback. Oh, my goodness.
Put it in my notes, and then you get solo kills. And I think that my answer would probably be like the mid jungle as a whole for the exact same reasons that you said.
Yeah.
You know, the Maryville coming in, the difference that they made in their roster from last year to this year is that mid jungle with UG Spyrex coming in. They've obviously looked really good. They've been the best mid jungle. Well, we're one of the best mid jungles in the NACL. UG obviously just won the MVP award in Challengers. And if Winnie and Darkwings are on their A game, I think they are able to match them at least a little bit.
They definitely can.
The problem is that, you know, we haven't always seen that, and Winnie will have his good games and will have his bad games sometimes. Right. And so I do agree Darkwings is a big part in facilitating that, but I think just that duo as a whole is really going to have to perform.
Right. And you might be wondering, you know, for the astute among you, like, why are we not talking about Surdy? I think the expectation is that Surdy will be a huge factor, right? But
he's going to have his
right.
He's going to have his games.
He's going to have his games, but Winnie and Darkwings, I feel like, need to be the ones that really put the team over the edge. For Maryville, though, I want to zoom in a little bit on the bottom lane because I'm going to specifically call out Scary Jerry a bit because Scary Jerry has had a phenomenal 2024. He has been incredible. One of the best bot laners in CLOL, one of the best bot laners in NACL, most improved player in NACL, right? But I will say I need to see a big series from him for two reasons. One is that Maryville should have the edge in this bottom lane, right? Like Scary Jerry and Zyko, for as good as Aaron and Skytech are, this Maryville bottom lane should be able to get an edge, especially in the lane phase. I mean, Scary, Jerry, and Zyko have been so dominant in that portion of the game. And number two, I don't think we have seen a good LAN performance from Jerry yet. And I'm going to put that out into the universe.
Yeah, the top eight best of three against, because he made it to top 4 against Michigan State in 2022 with Converse.
Okay. That's true.
And then he also had that one game against Bay State where he carried.
On Converse, he played really well. Yeah, you're right. He was 1v9 on Converse. Okay.
He had one. Are you talking about like the Hugh Fest and?
But I'll talk about like let me like on Maryville.
Okay. On
Maryville, I don't think we've seen like a really good LAN best of 5, and I really want to see it this weekend. I don't know. I'm actually curious. Like, do you think that's fair to put down? Because I think like I mean, he's been an amazing player, but I'm curious your thoughts.
I'm trying to jog my memory a little bit because when I think of Scary Jerry, the first thing I think about was when he was on Converse and he made that run to the semifinals.
On Converse, he did have that really big. He was 1v9. You're right.
He 1v9 against MSU, and then he had one game 1v9 against Bay State. I think he played like Zareth bot lane or something.
He played
and went like 20.
They played like Ezreal Zareth or something. Yeah, so him and Rox.
That's what I remember specifically. But now that you mention it, we haven't seen that level of hypercare, I guess, from him at a LAN.
He's been really good, you know.
And I think part of that is, you know, the team that he's on and the players that he is playing with. But also, you know, you think back to NACL, that Grand Finals, I think, you know, Sajed and Chime actually had a really good time against Jerry and Zyko, which was a little bit surprising to us. We thought that the bot lane for Maryville could be something that took them over the edge a little bit. So I definitely see where you're coming from there with the bottom lane. My answer would actually be Niles up in the top lane.
That's a good answer, too.
We know what Surdy's going to do. And the question is, will Niles be able to kind of hold the line? I know that we had that trash talk segment on our post-game interview on Salty Runback where Surdy remembered that despite the fact that SLU did not get the chance to play against Maryville in that NACL Grand Finals with Wildcard or anything like that, Surdy did. He was on FlyQuest. He ended up doing a pretty good job against Niles, and he, I think the words he quoted Faker, he said, all roads lead to me.
All roads lead to me.
And so,
metal.
When somebody said that at Worlds was Faker to Ruler, didn't go well for Ruler. So Niles is the ruler in this case, I guess, because he's on that golden road. He's coming back to Maryville, playing top lane for one last ride. He has one good opportunity to get that title that Maryville hasn't gotten since the last time he won back in 2019.
Yeah.
And I think that specifically when you think about how SLU played the game, I thought Porsche was able to actually handle Surdy pretty well the first time that they played, and then the second time around maybe not as much. And also Niles is kind of the big team leader of this team. He's the one making a lot of the decisions. He's doing a lot of the macro calls, and because of that, he's going to be a big driver in the team play for Maryville. And if he can facilitate the lane swaps in the ways that he wants, catch SLU off guard, I think that is what's going to really take Maryville over the edge in this game.
Yeah, I think that's a fair answer. I think, honestly, everyone has the capability to step up on both these teams. I think that's what makes both of them so exciting. As far as Maryville's bot lane, like I said, Jerry's got that dog in him, and I really I want to see just a massive pop-off performance tomorrow. Or on Saturday. That's all I want. You know what I mean? And he's got it. He's got that dog in him, man. I know it. Jerry, I know it's there.
Let's take a step back and talk about these programs as a whole a little bit as we move on to our next headline. Both Maryville and St. Louis were two of the highest tiered CLOL programs coming into this season. I think the very first CLOL Hub poll that came out, I think it was 1-2, Maryville SLU.
Yep.
And for good reason, right? But more specifically for these programs, right? Maryville has not won a championship in a while, but they are looking to become the winningest organization in CLOL history. Whereas on the other end, St. Louis are still looking for their first title and maybe looking to overcome that little brother narrative that they had as they are right next to Maryville geographically. Which program would benefit from this championship win more?
It's so interesting to me because I think it actually, if we're talking about the programs, it's undoubtedly SLU. Getting that first championship, that is a hallmark or would be a landmark for this program, right? Undeniably. Getting that championship over Maryville, no less. It would be amazing for the program, for all the players, for Chew, everybody over at St. Louis. Getting that first win, I don't think you can really overstate how much that means, especially SLU is a relatively young program, especially when compared with Maryville, right? However, I almost wonder if for the players in particular, look, it would mean a lot for both, right? But for Maryville, having not won a CLOL championship in 5 years, I almost wonder if for their players, that would make it that much sweeter, especially because a similar iteration of this roster, 3 of the 5, fell short last year. Some of them fell short the year before, right? So I think it means so much to both these teams and some of the players on Maryville. But, even Winnie, right? He lost to Maryville in Grand Finals back in 2019. Back in that last time Maryville won. It was Winnie that they overcame, right? So, there's so many cool narratives. But I think my answer is St. Louis. Getting that first program win would just be monumental.
It's a hard question to think about. In terms of if you're just looking at the raw, program details, right? In terms of, when they were founded, how many championships they have, I think you could make an argument towards SLU. But I think also just given the recent history and the fact that, Maryville has been so dominant, they're looking like the favorites right now. And St. Louis, while they had a pretty good season, are going to be matched up against these quote-unquote Titans. I think it actually is more important for Maryville to kind of come away with this win.
Yeah.
It's been a while. This is probably the last time that they're going to be playing with Niles at the very least, and who knows what the rest of the core is going to look like after that. If you can finish off that last ride for Niles, you can make yourself once again the most winningest program in collegiate history. I think that does hold some weight a little bit.
It definitely does.
UST won the last 2 championships, and I think people have started to be like, oh, is UST the new top dog? Obviously, we're here in a situation where they're not at the Grand Finals, but it definitely was something on people's minds.
Maryville definitely has a chance to, silence the doubters, as it were. Not that Maryville really has that many doubters, right? But, UST, they got one over them twice. And so I do think that this program does have a big chance to say, no. We're still the top dogs.
Yeah. I think it would be huge for either of these organizations. We're going to be... it's a big trophy.
That's a big trophy. Yeah.
I think the greatest thing is that at the end of the day, as collegiate fans, regardless of who ends up lifting the trophy, we're going to be watching them, and we're going to be very happy for them, winning the championship. We're going to be very sad for whoever loses, obviously, but it would be such a good story for both of these teams, and I think that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, especially for all 10 of these players in particular, we've been following their stories, you and me, for so long, right? And so many others. Getting to see whoever comes out on top, it's going to be so awesome, And the best part about this matchup, too, is I know that, whether or not it's in collegiate capacity or with these teams or with different teams, different leagues, whatever, all 10 of these players will probably be back in some way, just because like these guys are competitors, you know what I mean? And it's going to be so cool to see, and yeah, we'll be happy for whoever, you know.
All right, it's time to do it. We're going to do our predictions right now. I know we might be spoiling for the broadcast a little bit, but we're going to be able to provide a little bit of explanation as well.
Are you ready to get flamed? You ready? Ready to get flamed?
I also do want to do a little premonition action as well. So we're both going to predict the team that wins, what we think the series score is going to be, and also a premonition of what we think something a little bit more detailed is going to happen throughout this series.
Yep.
Not necessarily like, win-loss related, but one specific incident that you can just visualize in your head is going to happen when these two teams take the stage.
Yeah. All right, you putting me on the spot first?
I mean, I can go.
No, I got it. I got it. I'll fall on the sword. All right. Maryville 3-1. I'm sorry, SLU. I'm sorry. Okay.
Boring.
I know. It's like I said. I think SLU has come so far, and this team has done so much to get to where they are now, and nothing can ever take that away from them. And they are going to make Saturday's series amazing, and I have no doubt about that. And I think it'll be like a close 3-1 as well. I just feel like Maryville really is the complete team when you look at it from a CLOL lens. I mean, yes, they do have weaknesses. They're not infallible. I just have a hard time believing anyone can stop them. And while SLU has the best chance to do so, I just don't think anyone can.
What's your premonition?
My premonition? Okay. So my premonition will be on the SLU side. I think either Surdy or Darkwings, one of the SLU solo laners, is going to play a champion that we have not seen played in CLOL 2024. At least like in that position.
Do you have a guess of like what that champion could be? We are on patch. We are on not.
We're on 13-9. Yeah. Oh, that's a little trickier. Has anyone played Darius yet? Surdy could totally pull out a Darius.
He totally could. I wouldn't be surprised if it was picked.
Or like
honestly, by Surdy.
Okay, my other one would be Morgana is super OP on 13-11, right? I also think she's pretty good still on 13-9, and people are like sleeping on it. So I wonder if her prevalence, if someone picks a Morgana anywhere, honestly, maybe like in mid lane, but also like I guess I'll cheat a little bit, but like if I don't know if Winnie would play it or like Skytech would play it. Notice how I didn't predict Skytech to play a champion we've not seen yet. That would have been the safer. But yeah, so but like Darius could get pulled out. I don't know. I would have to look at like some other champs, but I think I think one of the two, Surdy or Darkwings, is gonna play something spicy.
Okay, I got flamed on the broadcast when I predicted 3-0 for UST, and so I got to do my boys justice. I got St. Louis 3-2. Baby.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Do I believe it? Of course I do. Is there
that sounded like there was a tinge of doubt.
Is there a situation where if Maryville wins, I am the champion of the Mac Dewey Bracket Challenge, and so I actually win either way? Maybe. So
the real question is, did Clyde predict SLU to win? Or did Clyde have Maryville? Because he was the one right on your heels.
I got to talk to Aaron and Sky before we got in here, and they said, they were talking about the bracket, and he said, yeah, Clyde's a hater. Clyde's a hater. He definitely is Maryville. He's a Maryville alum, too.
Yeah, okay. So you're pretty safe no matter what, I guess.
Yeah, I got 3-2 SLU. I want it to be a competitive series. I think, I don't know, Surdy might do some stuff.
Surdy might do some stuff.
Premonition. There's been a lot of trash talk. And if you go, I don't know if production, we have the ability to go back to the full studio of, the full gameplay setup in the other studio on the other stage. But those computers are very close to each other. They're very nearby.
They're gonna mental warfare?
There's gonna be some standing up, some yelling across the stage.
Oh my God, we're gonna go full CB lol. We're gonna add a B.
Some OG Esports. Jerry's gonna pull the bicep out, things like that.
Dude,
that's my premonition.
Okay, I like that.
Shout out to Cold Throw, by the way. I know Cold Throw at the MEC lands would always be a big screamer, and I feel like Niles. I think Niles is the one to instigate first. Well, he's gonna have his guys.
I mean, didn't Surdy literally do the flex at CLOL Finals against Maryville?
He did.
There's definitely some
they've got
bad
some
blood there.
Yeah.
There's some bad blood there.
I mean, these guys are. To be clear, these guys are all good friends. They all hang out.
Together.
SLU just scrimmed in Maryville's facility for like a week as well because of the situation.
Because their Wi-Fi was out. They flew over together on the same plane. Yeah.
They're cool, but they're not going to be cool for this just one series.
And we're gonna love it. We're gonna reap the rewards.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. You know what? I literally said at lunch, by the way. I said to Cynthia, who's like the director of kind of what's going on here on the GG Tech side, and I was like, if anyone's going to cope for SLU, it's Grapes. So, firsthand, we get the cope.
He was right. That's going to do it for our headlines here today. We're going to be right back with our part 2, where we get to talk to the directors of both of these programs, Chew from St. Louis and Clerkie from Maryville. We'll see you there. From the great state of Idaho, we've got the 2 directors of the CLOL finalists here today. From Maryville University, we got Clerkie. From St. Louis University, we've got Chew. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Are you looking to me to like give
I was seeing if you were going to say something first,
okay.
and then I was going to say, because we were going to do exactly that.
Got it.
I mean, it's fantastic. Like, I'm so happy to be here, especially since I've had to kind of panic to see if we were actually going to make it. You got a pretty decent cushion.
We had a reverse sweep St. Thomas.
Okay, well, I was in loser bracket.
He was in losers bracket for a while.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Like
For round 1.
4 series? Something like that?
Yes, it's SLU, Northwood, UST, Winthrop. Yeah, y'all
Bro, we had
had
to go through the gauntlet, yeah.
Yeah.
Like everyone.
But we survived. We made it. Like,
Yeah,
we're good.
thankfully.
We're locked in. All right. Well, what was it like? I mean, coming out to Boise, same flight, crosstown rivals. Like, what's that all about?
You were with my players on that.
Yeah, I ironically got into the flight because we had to buy our own. The staff had to buy our own flights, but we we were able to. I got onto the flight with all 10 players pretty much. And
I was on my own flight.
yeah, he got a break. Yeah, he got a break.
Yeah.
So you had to wrangle,
Although behind me, I had like 3 9-year-old girls singing Frozen songs for 3 hours. So I might have been.
At least it's only 3
It might have been
hours,
worse.
right? Like,
yeah.
I mean,
Is that worse or better than
One more
than
hour, I would've
listening to
started singing
Niles-
along.
Listening to Niles, Scary Jerry, and all those guys talking?
They're actually so well behaved.
We have
Really?
our boys are well behaved.
My players are not well
The
behaved.
SLU guys, though,
No.
maybe not.
was Aaron like vlogging the whole time?
He
Like,
was.
yeah,
He's
okay.
really good at that. So I told Doc that we have a lot of content to give to him. But I definitely saw Dan's content from Maryville's, and they do not know. Like, it's like them walking side by side.
In
and
our
that's it.
program, it's a huge meme to troll Shipley. Every single person in the entire program trolls Shipley. So whenever Shipley has an ask, like vlogging content or anything, all the clips are just extremely troll.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, both were in LA last year for grands, for semifinals and then finals eventually. But this year in a different location, but now you guys are finally getting the chance to face off against each other in a CLOL game in the grand finals. I mean, how did you guys, a few years back, ever look at each other and think about, man, one day we're going to be able to play against each other in a match like this? And
Maybe he did. I didn't.
All right, well, yeah, to be completely honest, I started off the program with a pretty abysmal budget, and my scholarships were pretty abysmal too. And when Dan was helping me out, it was kind of like a pipe dream to even like get to that point of being contending for a national title. Thankfully, like my university was pretty flexible in the way that I operate my budget. So even though I don't expand, I can move the money in how I need to, and it's just investing into the right people, right? So the students are the ones that I invest into as much as possible. And like it was a goal to like start playing against Maryville in every single competition. I think this past 2 years we've played each other in multiple grand finals at multiple events, and finally it's at a national title. And I think this is like, for not only for us two, but also for the entirety of our city. I think it's super, super great to be able to give that back and put that show on for everyone at home.
Yeah, it felt like, at least to us, that ever since the program surged last year, it was kind of like a long time coming. Like it was on its way at some point. I'm glad we got it. Honestly, maybe a little bit sooner than expected even. And I mean, this year has been so great for you all. I don't know, Dan, maybe for you it was just Tuesday, but
I mean, to be honest, in fall, our roster was looking pretty shaky. We prioritized it was either we were going to get an AD or we were really prioritizing an AD.
Okay.
And then UG became available. So we put all of our eggs into UG, and Niles was going to coach. He was coaching in fall, if you guys remember.
yeah.
And I was basically like, Niles, I'm making you go for one more ride. Because otherwise we would have had to have Spyrex in top lane. So that was basically like what completed the roster. And ever since we like had those 5 put together, I really haven't been worried. I thought that we were going to be here all year pretty much. I was surprised by our NACL performance, but I expected to be in CLOL Grands this year for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you actually talk about the Niles thing. We were going to talk about this later, but I'll just ask now. we were actually, we heard that, it was a player vote that was like, we want Niles to hold things down in the top lane.
Yeah.
Kind of walk us through what that growth process was like for the team, coming from that fall iteration of the roster into, what we have now that has, performed so well.
So with Aiden, it felt like the team lacked direction in key moments of the game. So I felt regardless of whether or not we got UG, we would still lack that. So I originally pitched the idea to Niles. He's like, after the last NECL split, I don't think any of the boys want to play with me. I was like, I guarantee you if you ask them, they're going to want to play with you. So that was when he's like, okay, I'll ask them. If they say yes, I'll play. And that was where that vote came from. But yeah.
Respect.
It's one of the few times, as a GM or like a director, you don't really impact the outcomes very often. You build the rosters. This is one of the few semesters where I felt like a decision I made impacted the outcome. Mm-hmm. I can only say that's happened like 2 or 3 times in like my 10-year career, pro or collegiate. So it feels good to kind of see it pay off throughout the year.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It goes to show just how much of a well-oiled machine like your program kind of has become over the years, right? I mean, I guess especially behind players like Niles, who I guess you've been working with for 5 years at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, what's it been like to get to the chance to reunite with him over the last couple of years? And I guess now he's continued to take more and more steps. He's going to be coaching next year as well, right?
Yeah. So our culture at Maryville, I think, is what differentiates us. We've been around. We're the second oldest program behind RMU, which doesn't exist anymore. So we're the oldest living program.
Shout out Miami of Ohio, Covey, woo!
Yeah. And so we've had the opportunity to over a few graduating classes develop culture that gets passed down from upperclassmen to lowerclassmen. And so when we get people like Niles coming back, especially from the LCS, it's a really big deal for players, especially players like Jerry and Zyko, that are kind of trying to head there. There's a lot of veteran leadership there, and Niles is someone that cares deeply not about the program and the school that he's at, and that's why CKG is my assistant director. He played with Maryville for 4 years. That's why we've hired Niles. We hire from within, and it helps us kind of build this culture where it doesn't matter what player I get coming in the fall. I know I can believe that they're going to be integrated into the culture, and they'll be one of the boys within a couple months.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, I feel like in general, that's kind of the collegiate culture almost in and of itself, where you have alumni doing their thing, helping out the younger guys as well. So I mean, it's been so cool to see the growth of both the programs, and we can talk a little bit more about the teams as they are right now a little bit later as well. But I kind of want to come back to you guys a little bit, because I know that the two of you have known each other for quite a long time now. So let's go way back. What's the lore? When did this director duo, if you will, start off?
Well, I got a DM from him that started out, "Hello, Mr. Clark." You want to elaborate on that?
I was so when I was a freshman starting out at St. Louis University, I started the club actually. And that was just a place I had to literally bum off the anime club just to be able to book rooms through the university.
Wow.
There was no space on campus, anything remotely like that. So. And I really saw varsity esports as a coming wave to the universities around me, and then Maryville's right next door, right? So, and I grew up in St. Louis myself, so Maryville University was always 5 minutes from my house. So, going back to SLU, I knew Dan was the director of esports, and I just reached out, prayed that he was going to DM me back, and thankfully he agreed to come in and talk to some of my admins and just set up a meeting. And
It
it
was
was
do 2 or 3 meetings.
Yeah, a couple of meetings. Literally just talking to my athletic director and everything. And honestly, they weren't that responsive at first at all. Him coming in, but at the very least, I made a connection that gave me a lot of direction of how I wanted to conduct everything. Keep in mind, this was my freshman year, right? So I didn't get anything off the ground until my junior year. So it was 3 years down the line, and that's when we had LCS finals at our arena actually.
Really?
I worked at the St. Louis Sports Commission. Myself in tandem with the Sports Commission, I actually flew them out to Riot, and we swooped that finals from a Nashville or another city.
Wow.
So we hosted
What year was this?
This was 2018 or 2019?
2019, spring 2019.
Okay,
It was the Sven dies at Baron gets reverse swept by TL type of thing.
So that's
Right.
a hidden lore. So Clerkie,
Yeah.
you're the reason that Sven died at Barron because
Literally.
if the
wouldn't have happened
if the
somewhere
arena
else,
was different,
clearly.
maybe
Yeah.
his
An hour different time zone or something. All of
Yeah.
a sudden he's a bit more locked in. Yeah.
Yeah, so we hosted the LCS finals in his basketball team's
Yeah,
arena.
if you go back in the VOD, actually, you can see the Billiken in the VOD as the teams come out.
Dude,
And
that's so
That's
cool.
like, it was so insane for my administration to see like not only the teams come out, the professional teams, and see that atmosphere, but see how fast the stadium sold out, how much food that was sold at the stadium itself, the energy that was there too. We got box seats for them, right? And we were just sitting there talking, like his president was talking to my president, like all my administrators were just talking and chatting. And that exposure just allowed for all this to just occur. And they just knew right after that they needed to invest in some way, shape, and form. I remember because the room that we actually are in right now, I asked my current boss for it my sophomore year, and he laughed at me. He was like, "Why the hell would I ever give you this room? They're so contested. Everyone wants this room." And then the next year, the construction began for the space.
That's amazing, really.
you talk Clerkie about meeting with Chew and having that meeting with his sports administrators over at St. Louis, but I'm sure you had to do the same thing when you started Maryville. Was that experience helpful in terms of being able to help Chew start that program, and kind of what was that experience like? Because there was not a ton of programs out there at that time.
I was pretty lucky with my program. So Maryville's inception came right after my LCS split with Enemy.
Right.
There was a player on that team that had dropped out of college and got kicked out of his house and was living on his friends' couches trying to make it, and he finally made it with Enemy. And then we got relegated, so I got to see the emotions of something paying off for someone and then it all going away. And that was where I kind of got the idea of trying to get challenger players to come to school and build a team that was strong enough at a school for tier 2 players to want to come. And so I didn't really think about it until after my LCS split. I went to my counselor for business guidance about Enemy, and he was like, "Wait, you're doing this and you're going to school here?" And I was like, "Yeah." And within 2 days, I was in the president's office, and the president was like, "What would it take to get this on our campus?"
Wow.
So I was lucky in that it came from the other end. I didn't really have to I didn't really have to convince them of anything, but I did convince them about the level of scholarship. I basically was like, if I have these scholarships, I guarantee we will win an undefeated national championship. And so the president was like, no one's ever come to my office and said anything like that before, so I kind of just want to see if you're able to do it. Luckily, we did. So now the rule at Maryville is he'll keep giving me what I ask for until I'm wrong, basically.
Wow. I mean, it's really cool that you have, an administration, like you said, kind of coming at it from the other end, where almost they were already interested in this idea, and then, you were someone to make it happen.
And so I would say that, the part of that helps me talk to people like Chew and his school and the other schools is I've seen it. I've motivated admins, and because they're motivated, they very clearly display what they're motivated about. So it kind of gives me an insight into admin speak and what their priorities are, and basically I just try to hit that whenever I talk to
It's
other
a
admins.
big difference that a lot of people in the esports space don't really understand, is that 95% of the job for esports directors is making esports more layman for these administrators, and kind of translating that conversation to make it more about education. Those are things that I didn't learn until I was appointed director and had it on the job, because I knew all the esports knowledge before, but the actual importance of academics, school, all that sort of stuff is things I had to learn along the way.
Yeah, I would say only 5% of my job resembles anything close to what I did at E United or Enemy. 95% of my job is talking to admins, talking to partners, talking to city partners, talking to community, all that stuff. So it's very, very different than Tier 2 and Pro.
Yeah, I feel like that kind of makes sense in a way. But, Daniel, you also talked about, sort of the impermanence of esports, especially as it's been for, the last, 10 years or so. And we've been, getting better here and there. But to both of you, how does it feel, having at your school really, I guess, built something somewhat permanent and that is, helping people, achieve their goals and everything like that? I mean, if you want to speak on, I guess, kind of the rewarding aspect of what you do. Daniel, I'll go to you first, and then.
So prior to Maryville and during it, for part of it, I've won a lot of championships in pro. Like we've won COD Worlds, we've won Smite Worlds, we've won Challengers in LCS before, back in the day, and so I've done a lot of winning. And the thing that like ultimately made me choose to quit that job and solely focus on collegiate was the fact that like you spend all year for like one match to win one trophy, and you finally win the big trophy, and you feel amazing for like 4 hours, 5 hours, and then afterwards you're like, oh, I have to start over now. We have to do it again. Now we have a target on our back. So when that happened a few times, I kind of realized like this isn't really as fulfilling. It's very stressful. It's not as fulfilling as I thought it would be. And then the first time, I didn't think this would happen. I think I was a little immature to like kind of understand the impact that collegiate has at the time. But when I saw the first class of kids walk across graduation, and I saw like their parents crying, that was when I kind of realized like, okay, this is like a very different type of outcome.
Yeah.
And so I would say that is way more rewarding than any of the championships, is whether it's Niles going straight to the LCS or APA winning the LCS after he's been at Maryville, or kids walking across on the stage. That's the impact that's like kept me in collegiate, and the reason why I left a pro job for it.
Yeah, I mean the space in general is just you're making an impact just by providing opportunities for students that probably wouldn't have the opportunity to go to college in the first place. Even like for example, Deos, for example, I just brought him on this past year. He just finished all like his GED or his past high school credits just to be able to come to the university, and he was panicking the entire time, freaking out about like, oh, I finished high school late. Like, can I get into this school? Like, especially since SLU's a pretty academically hard school to get into. A lot of these kids wouldn't have gone to this university specifically, or at least at this caliber, without esports in the conversation. So just being able to provide a solid degree and being able to guide them through, like talk to them, because I've noticed a lot of League of Legends players or gamers in general don't have like the same mindset about college that a lot of people who just come straight out of high school have, like the plan that they have, like go off, attend school for 4 years, graduate, get internships, all that. That's like in the back of their mind, and kind of bringing them back onto that path is like super important, and it allows me to actually feel like I'm making an impact past just winning a championship.
The other big difference is when you're working with a pro team or a tier 2 team, Enemy and United were never like a Cloud9 or a Liquid. And so it felt like my org was always like a stepping stone to a better org, and the mindset of my players was like, how can I make more money here, or how can I move on to like a bigger org? Whereas in collegiate, like it's not, the focuses aren't the same. It's about the game and it's about the degree. And so when you're working with players where those are the priorities, the conversations are always completely different, as opposed to being like a contracted salaried player, right?
Right.
So
my thing now is that with Maryville and other collegiate programs in the NACL and the NACL qualifiers and things like that, it seems like more and more there is that kind of bridge, and I think that's something that Clerkie, you have talked about a lot as being something that you prioritize. Have you noticed maybe a shift in the philosophy of some players in their attempts to go to collegiate as like a stepping stone for pro, and do you think that is still something that you do agree with in that way?
it was really hard for like 6 or 7 years. But recently with our performances, I think a lot of players are kind of realizing that it is possible to do school and compete at that level. I think also like NACL's gotten a little bit weaker, so that's also helped us out a little bit. But now that like we're competing at a high tier 2 level in not only League of Legends but also Overwatch, a lot more of like the tier 2 space is like, I want to build a roster like Maryville at another school. So you'll see like Winthrop's Overwatch team pop up, or Winthrop's League of Legends team pop up, or the core that you have at SLU. So I just think as more and more of these respected tier 2 players start to go to collegiate, the philosophy of I'm going to do both at the same time is going to become more prevalent. And obviously, like no mandated salaries in NACL has been a big impact on that. But yeah.
And I want to stress this so much that a lot of these tier 2 players that do come and approach us, these scholarships, we don't have like infinite scholarships to give. There's not infinite schools that give like substantial scholarships in the space either. There's probably around like maybe 10 schools that are currently giving like up to full tuition. So it's not like infinite amount, but like these League of Legends players or like esports players don't really know how to navigate the financial aid system as well, or who to talk to, even if a school is giving a really good deal that they would not really understand because they don't see the word like full ride in that, right?
Right.
So I'm hoping that at least the space normalizes a bit more to like, reach out to these Tier 2 players and that there are more opportunities than just these schools that are super, super competitive. But at the same time, like, I just really hope that Tier 2 players just stop pushing it off as much as possible.
I do think if it keeps going the way it's going, though, and more directors make their students play together in Tier 2, the NACL could be half collegiate teams in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, already, we've talked about this a lot. CLOL is the strongest it's ever been this year, like, by honestly quite a bit. Like, we've had so many players come in. As far as the future of collegiate, do you guys see collegiate as sort of like the future of NA developmental? Do you see a lot of players continuing to come into this space and get their degrees, get an education, and play? Or where do you, I guess I'll leave it pretty open-ended, where do you see the future of collegiate going from that sort of lens?
I have a take that's like rooted in traditional sports. So my father played in the OHL in hockey. I grew up playing hockey, so everything, and he coached hockey in collegiate as well. So a lot of the things that like I base my opinions on are around what I learned from him. But I think that historically what NA has thought is necessary to compete with Korea and China and win a world championship is to match their work ethic. But I think what a lot of people lose sight of is the fact that North American culture is nowhere close to Asian culture. So the ability to just transplant that work ethic isn't something that is possible. And so I've been a big proponent of trying to build out the North American pipeline to reflect what's worked in North America for the last half a century, which is attaching sport to scholastic. It's the easiest way to reach the kids and get them involved in the game and have levels to where they work with a coach here, work with a coach here, work with a coach here, and gradually build up to that pro scene. And so I think that the future of collegiate, like if everything shakes out naturally the way that I think it will be, I think that collegiate will take over Tier 2 in every esport. And it's kind of headed that way with the financials of the industry as well. So you're seeing a lot of publishers either pull back or abandon their Tier 2 ecosystem. Collegiate doesn't need the publisher support to survive.
Right.
It is financially viable on its own. Collegiate might not be in a big studio in some esports or even League of Legends this year, but Boise's awesome. Look where we're sitting right here.
We got the whole setup.
This can survive without Riot paying for everything.
Right.
So I think that's going to be the big factor to support that hypothesis, especially in the near term, is the financial state of the industry. But I do think that like training-wise, I think that we need to adopt the scholastic approach that's existed for the last half a century.
You sound like a Salty Runback host to me, but yeah.
Right in here.
What about you? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, even past that, Dan and I both work even past collegiate. We've been talking to our high school state organizations about developing the younger students that are in the high school space. And honestly, like, if you compare the amount of people that play League in that space to the other games, it's pretty abysmal. I think we only had like 4 teams in our state organization for just League of Legends, and that's a problem, right? Young people aren't playing this game, and just trying to normalize the space, introducing the game at a younger age, and basically doing what Riot needs to do, and enacting that younger generation is the way that we keep the esport alive. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is through Scholastic.
Yeah.
Before we wrap this up, let's
Talk about the matchup a little bit here because we've been going.
Yeah, I know. We've been doing a lot of.
As a whole, things like that.
But
there's a grand finals happening this Saturday. I guess
Chew, I'll start with you. Watching your guys kind of come into this boot camp, I guess, at the start of the round of 32, you guys didn't get a chance to really scrim together that much until the bracket started. You go down to the lower bracket. Just what is your reaction from the outside watching these guys, have their struggles and then end up coming back together to go on this really crazy run?
No, it's a really weird narrative towards my team, I think, because we played in NACL as Wildcard Gaming without Surdy, and he's on the #1 NACL team. But everyone always counted us out, I feel like, because we're in the same conference as Maryville, when our North Conference Finals is literally the grand finals of the national championship, just because we lost a series that was just for seeding, and then it didn't really impact seeding at all, period. There's literally nothing on the line except for bragging rights for that match. and then going into the national championship, just people downplaying us, I think really motivates the players because they are the hungriest guys out there. We were talking about the storylines between the two. Like, none of my players have won a national championship before. This is the first time our program has been there, and so although we don't have like the storied culture that other programs have, we are the hungriest program out there that basically needs this win. So we're gonna go out there in the grand finals with everything we got because it's all we have pretty much.
And the team has, from the outside looking in, seemingly really rallied over the course of this national championship as well. Because, obviously it wasn't without bumps even, against UST, right? There was that series. But we made the lower bracket run, and now we're here. And it feels like, watching the interviews and stuff after the wins and how, to my eye test, the team has improved so much. Like, there has been some sort of thing that might have happened in the last month or so that has, lit a fire under this team. And I don't know if you want to speak at all to the improvement and the work that the guys have done recently to really buckle down and get to this point. No,
I think losing to UST in the upper bracket actually did us wonders. I think it really motivated the players. And then also going down, that one weekend where we lost to UST and then went down 0-2 to Ole Miss, I think we played some of the worst League of Legends that we've ever had in our entire lives. So literally just getting through that weekend, getting another week to practice and play, I think they've shown how good of a team they are. We've gone through literally every top program except for Maryville at this point to make it to the grand finals. So I just hope that the narrative is at least shown that these guys are hard workers because they've been living, breathing, eating, drinking, doing everything with League of Legends at this point. And I really hope, I know for a fact that they're going to put on a show this weekend.
Love to hear it.
Did they just take off the mic?
Daniel is officially King Yapper, I guess.
Well, I did actually want to ask a question over to Clerkie about the same thing. We'll see if we can get his mic set up. Thank you, Doc.
Doc Haskell, everyone, shout out.
But yeah, kind of back over to you, Clerkie. But kind of in the same way, Chew just mentioned how this win would mean a lot for his program and things like that. Maryville's always been the pinnacle of collegiate esports, or one of them, and it's been a while since the national championship trophy has been lifted for you guys. I mean, what would it mean for you to come back here and get that win again?
Yeah, I feel like our reputation kind of bites us at the end of the year every year. We kind of have, I know last year, for example, our guys felt a ton of pressure, and I think the pressure gets to them, especially when I'm reminding them that this is the important one. So especially this year, I've tried to take a back seat, just kind of let Niles and the boys do their thing. And I think that this is a very different team this year. We're very different with adversity. We just reverse swept St. Thomas. Prior to that, we reverse swept. Prior to that, we reverse. Prior to that, we reverse swept Disguised. We went through a lot of really good teams, and we made a really big losers bracket run in NACL that I don't think any previous Maryville roster could have done. So I think the story going into this matchup is literally just the same as last year and the year before, where I think the only way that we lose is if we lose to ourselves or we're in our heads. Mm-hmm. So I think that if we go out and we do what we've been doing all year, we're going to win pretty easily.
And so Cubby quoted you just a few minutes ago as having said that this Maryville team embodies the values that you've tried to set out for this program more than any other team, at least for a little bit. Do you want to speak a little bit more on that and how this team has done that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in the past, we've had rosters that have issues in scrims with drama. We have players that blame each other. We have players that aren't willing to bring up issues when they arise, and they'll talk behind people's backs. It's just classic esports stuff. I feel like this is the first roster that we've had, at least on the League of Legends side, where it's really just 5 brothers. If there's an issue in scrims, they talk it through. Nothing's really left unsaid. And I think that it's just a completely different, mega productive unit of 5 players that are going to be hard for anybody to beat. I mean, you saw earlier in the year, not even the NACL could do it until we got the FlyQuest. And I think that that Maryville kind of thing kind of came up and bit us in that series as well. I don't think that we were playing like ourselves during that series, just because it kind of caught up to the players. Oh crap, we could win the NACL. I don't think that that match felt like another day in the office, but I think this one is, and I think that they learned from that. And I think that this is the best team that we've ever had. So if SLU manages to beat us, I think that that's a pretty big accomplishment by them.
Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Before we let you go, one last thing. We often would want people to do like predictions and things like that. We know what you guys are going to pick.
3-0 both ways.
3-0 both ways.
Obviously, it's 3-0 both ways. So our alternate question for you guys is we want a premonition from each of you to predict something that is not necessarily the result of a game, but maybe one very specific moment that you just, in your head, you're thinking, that's going to happen in this series.
Our bot lane kills their bot lane.
How many times?
3 to 5 times.
3, 2, 5.
That's a decent amount.
That's a good range, yeah.
So that's one per game,
That's
basically.
at least one per game. Well, I guess, yeah. We'll see.
You got anything?
Mine is just Maryville has never performed on LAN all year, and they're not going to perform this year again. You guys are lucky that it's in Boise on a smaller stage. On top of that, you guys always peak at the wrong time and never peak at the national championship. So we're at it again. Get in second place in NCL, lose the national championships, the fourth place wildcard gaming. Like,
That
have fun.
Really the question?
No, I like it. That's what we want.
He asked for something specific. That wasn't very specific.
It's just you guys are going to choke.
Oh, okay.
All right.
All right.
Well, we got a trophy sitting right there. Someone's going to go home with it. I love this.
Chew, you should touch it right now.
I'll touch it when I win.
Isn't that a curse? Like
Yeah, it
that
is.
you don't want to touch the trophy until you
I
end
was
up
trying to
winning
guarantee
it.
the win there.
That's tricky. That's tricky.
Well, we'll see what happens. Probably tomorrow from when this episode comes out, 2 days from when we're recording this. Guys, I mean, seriously, thank you so much for taking the time. Best of luck to the both of you. I know Grapes and I are just rooting for entertainment value. The 3-0 both ways might be what you guys want. We're hoping for the 3-2.
Do we really
But
3-0 both ways? That'd be pretty boring.
I get to go climb a mountain if we 3-0.
I
I have to go to bed. I have to go to bed if it's a 5-game set. Do you want to hug so that people know that we don't hate each other?
We're actually really good friends.
all
Look
right.
at that.
Well, yeah. Thank you guys for taking the time. I'm really excited to watch the matches. For everybody out there, remember, it's going to be on Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific is when the match starts. I believe coverage starts at least an hour beforehand. We're going to have an hour-long pre-show. So y'all are not going to want to miss the match. Make sure follow us on our social media, @Salty Runback Pod. Shout out to Boise State for letting us use the space for this entire Salty Runback episode. Doc Haskell and everybody else behind the scenes, all the students, making us look so amazing. This might be the best looking Salty Runback episode
Oh, guaranteed.
we've ever had.
Yeah.
So we cannot thank them enough for allowing us to do that. And if you think that it's not going to be a 3-0, take what they said with a grain of salt. We'll see you all on Saturday for the college championship.
I like that.
Have a great day, everyone.